Hello and welcome to News You Need. This is our show where we invite USM students to talk about current headlines and what they care about. I'm your new host, Lily Burghard, a digital journalism major. I used to be a producer, but here I am. Wonderful. Hello, welcome to News You Need. I'm Lily Burghard, the new host, and do you want to introduce yourselves with your name, classification, and your major, and any student groups you're a part of or anything you're passionate about?
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Abigail McDonald. I'm a third-year double majoring in microbiology and sociology. I also have minors in chemistry and public health. I am the president of Alpha Epsilon Delta, which is an honor society for students who are looking to go into healthcare. I'm also the vice president of the new USM chapter for the American Society of Microbiology, and I'm also the treasurer of the Sociology Club.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of extracurriculars. That's awesome. And you?
Awesome. I'm V Temple. I'm a junior video arts major. I'm currently involved with digital mass media.
That's lovely. And you also take pictures at shows.
Yes,
I just read an article
pictures
about
at
it.
shows.
Well, what are USM students talking about right now? What are the topics that are really prevalent on our minds?
I think the topics that are prevalent on everyone's minds, like anyone who is politically involved right now or who cares about our country right now, we're all worried about the same things.
Yeah, that's very true. Like the recent, specifically for me, I know that just the crackdown from immigration and customs enforcement, it's been really horrible. That's like the top of my list, other than the Epstein file stuff this morning. What about you? Anything other than that?
I mean, I've been concerned about ICE, of course,
Yes.
as everyone else is.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that. So I was just going to briefly mention, in case anyone listening isn't aware, ICE has currently been cracking down across the country, and specifically in Minneapolis, there's been a large uproar due to there being multiple killings and protests from people who are unhappy with the way that ICE is running things, understandably. The main people that online have been talking about is Keith Porter, who was killed at his apartment complex on New Year's Eve for firing a single shot into the air in celebration. He was also killed by an off-duty ICE agent who saw him shoot into the air in joy and ran inside, threw on his armor, and came out and killed him. Next was Renee Good. I think everyone saw that video, who was killed in her car trying to get out of ICE's way. And then was shot, killed, and then just hurled with insults. And then most recently, there's been Alex Peretti. He was pretty much killed for walking up and recording, and they said he had a semi-automatic handgun, which ended up being his cell phone. How are we feeling about this? What are you guys thinking?
With Alex Peretti, being someone who wants to go into healthcare, watching an ICU nurse that works at the VA be murdered in front of my eyes, to be an ICU nurse and to work at the VA, that takes a lot of compassion and a lot of care, and that's a man that he was there to help people, and yes, he did have a firearm, but he had a permit to carry that firearm, and he never once pulled it. So watching someone who has dedicated their life to the same things I want to dedicate my life to has been really hard to deal with, but it's also made me sit and think about what I would do for my patients in the future and live like he did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I knew that the healthcare tie-in would probably be really important. What about you, V?
I mean, I think people need to give more attention to Keith Porter, because it commonly happens when there's as tragic as Renee and Alex's murders were, it's just, they always get they get focused on more than black victims and black and brown victims, because black and brown people have been getting killed by the police for decades. And I mean, there's brown people right now dying in detention centers, and I feel like everyone's not really focused on that. They're focused on the two white people that were killed.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
No one even mentioned really Keith Porter very much until Renee Good, and they were like, why aren't we also speaking about Keith
Right.
Porter? And I know that I didn't learn about his death until probably 2 weeks after New Year's when it happened. What I found especially disturbing about that story is that it wasn't like he was coming up or protesting or in any way posing a threat other than shooting a shot into the air, which everyone does on New Year's. It's like fireworks. It's the same concept. And he was just pretty much killed for celebrating and for living in a black body, which is just disturbing.
Right. It's nothing new, but right.
No, state-sanctioned violence against people of color is nothing new, unfortunately. I know I've seen a lot of people talking about how ICE is the Gestapo or how ICE is this, but this is like historically rooted in American colonialism, I believe. And this type of violence has also led to civilians feeling free to do as they please and to hurt people. Actually, another headline that came out is that there was a high school student in Nebraska, and they were doing a student protest. It wasn't sanctioned by the school, but there were staff members from the school watching them because they're just high school kids. And a person in a red car with a Trump flag on the back came up and hit one of the students with their car and then drove away and left her in the street. And so I just wanted to ask, what are y'all's feelings on how state-sanctioned violence leads to just more violence in general?
I haven't heard about that case specifically, but I've been reading a book recently titled Jesus and John Wayne, and it's about how white evangelicals have led to the rise of Donald Trump and the rise of fascism in the United States. And that reminds me of that book because one of the main points in that book is that Donald Trump didn't rise to power because he's anything. He rose to power because he was able to give white evangelicals a voice, and they're using his confidence and his Trumpness to push themselves and their own agendas further. So that's what I think about.
Can't say I've heard of that specific headline, but again, it's like state-sanctioned violence is not a new thing. I just can't. I find it more difficult to be surprised by what the government's doing right now.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And then also you just see pictures every day of children being taken in, small kids being taken away from their families. There's that child, Liam, I forgot his last name. Was it Ramos?
I believe
think
so.
it was.
I think so.
Taken away with his father later. And from that same school district, I think there have been 3 other children taken in like the past 2 weeks that have been deported or just at least taken into custody. And I think one of the most disturbing aspects of them being taken into custody is that sometimes we don't even know where they are. They say they get deported, but a lot of times they just end up disappearing. And so it's a really scary time to be living in our country. Is there any local news that has been on you guys' mind?
I'm really big into prison reform and prison abolition generally. And one thing I've been really concerned about recently is it's well known across the country that Parchman is an atrocious place.
I was going to mention Parchman earlier.
But after the snowstorms recently, they were out of power for a really long time. I'm not sure if they've gotten it back, but I've actually been to Parchman and been inside the units, and even in March it was like sweltering hot in there, and I cannot imagine being in there in the freezing cold without heat. And I know that within the Mississippi Department of Corrections and our prison system, getting things fixed there takes an extremely long time, and I am extremely worried about the people there right now.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Parchman is absolutely disturbing. I had to write an essay a few years back about Parchman and do a lot of research into it. And the practice is not only are the guards like extremely violent with the prisoners, but then the food ends up being rotten a lot of the time. There's no, like you said, there's no AC, no insulation, no heating in the winter, and it floods a lot. So then they're just stuck in water. It's absolutely horrible. There's definitely a lot of need for not only prison reform, but generally police reform in the state of Mississippi.
Definitely.
There was a recent news story out of Lexington, Mississippi, where they actually ousted the police chief due to a couple of lawsuits from people in Lexington for unfair jailing and just generally an overuse of force against civilians. So not only did they oust the police chief, but they're also calling for the reform of the entire Lexington Police Department, which I think is really important. Any positives that y'all have been thinking about? Anything on y'all's minds? Because this is such dark subject matter, I know.
I mean, this isn't in Hattiesburg, but it was in New Orleans. There was plans to build a data center there, but I heard that the plans recently got blocked.
Yes,
so.
I did see that. That is an amazing message, and we will pick back up with that after our break. And we're back on air. All right. Could you start that quote from the beginning? Like you were talking about private prisons.
Private prisons in the United States are genuinely one of the worst things to come out of the way that our prison systems work, because there's no regulation, there's no one telling them what they can and cannot do, and a lot of the cases of abuse you see come from private prisons.
And they make money off of it too. They make a lot of money off of people. It's essentially, really, it's slavery. Mm-hmm. There's that documentary 13th. And it's really, while I was looking at headlines during the break, I just found out there's a new one. Catherine O'Hara, like from Beetlejuice and Schitt's Creek and everything, just died.
Oh.
So that's horrible. Rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara. I loved her. I love Beetlejuice. I love her. I mean, I didn't watch Home Alone that much, but she's the mom from Home Alone too, so that's really sad. Also this morning, the Department of Justice has released more from the Epstein files, about 3 million documents, 180,000 pictures, and more videos to come. The documents posted online are the largest batch of Epstein files released by the department to date and arrived weeks after a December 19 deadline imposed by Congress. The Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, said the release also included 2,000 videos and some 180,000 images. The law that required the Justice Department to make virtually all its Epstein investigative files public also required it to explain why it redacted any information, but they have yet to explain their redactions. How are we feeling about the Epstein files?
Well, I'm wondering how much of the new files are redacted and how much we're actually learning.
Yeah.
Because what new things are we learning aside from the fact that our president's a pedophile?
From what I understand, the 3 million documents also include a ton of anonymous tips, which really tell you a lot of nothing. Mm-hmm. So, and it's also telling you that people had been alerting our government about the Epstein files since like the early 2000s. Not the Epstein files, but about Epstein Island and the sex trafficking ring that it included since about the early 2000s, and it was mostly ignored, which I think is really horrible. I think people generally are just unhappy because we are missing trust in our government. I mean, I don't think we've ever really been able to fully trust our government, but when things like this feel covered up and when they feel so personal, I think everyone has someone who's experienced something disgusting, maybe not necessarily sex trafficking, but sexual assault and misconduct. And so it kind of just hits close to home when you find out that these elites that, in some ways, when they're celebrities, musicians, movie stars, you look up to, and you find out that they're a part of some of the most vile, Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick stuff you've ever heard of. How do y'all feel about that?
I think it's really hard to grasp sometimes that for me, it's hard to grasp it, like, these people can present themselves in a way that is the complete opposite of how they actually are. How do you get to that point where it doesn't even seem like you're showing guilt or remorse for these things you've done, and you can go out in public and behave normally?
Pete?
I mean, I've never trusted the government. Never trusted them. I mean, You
And
know,
what do you think it would take for a government that's clearly so broken to rebuild that trust in the American people, or to build it to begin with?
a complete reform. Everything needs to be like broken down from like the roots, because like we can dismantle like let's say getting Trump out of office now, that wouldn't really fix, like that would fix on the surface level, that would get him out of office so he can't do anything, but like the people behind him could be way worse. So it's like we need to like completely reform the government if we expect to get anything done.
And to get that done, I think that starts at a civilian level. I think it's important that workers unionize and we take care of each other when we can. That kind of leads me into the United Campus Workers is doing a 4-course thing on campus, actually, here, where they're teaching you about the dangers of AI. Actually, Evelyn Evans from, I think they were in
DC,
DC and something else.
her solo project,
Yeah, what's it called?
EVTV.
EVTV. I actually really like EVTV. Is teaching about the dangers of AI and really going in depth about not only what AI is, but the danger that it presents and why, and not just at our neurological level, but at an environmental level and things like that, and about just generally taking care of each other and learning how to do your civic duty. I know that a lot of people have been talking about the midterms recently and, you know, re-electing people, our representatives, to try and get some type of a reform. Do y'all feel like that's useful, or are y'all registered to vote?
I am.
What's y'all's stance on the voting stuff?
If things are going to change, they have to start small. You can't expect a major overthrow with one election. Like everyone was saying, everyone's saying, if we elected Kamala, this wouldn't be happening right now. We'd be at brunch right now. No, it starts small, and you have to build up. And so that's why I drive an hour home to vote in my elections at home, because that's important to me.
Me as well. I have to drive all the way to Rankin County.
Right. I mean, you have to. I mean, because presidentially, you can say whatever you'd like about that, but of course, local elections are always important because it's where
Absolutely.
you live, and you
It's
know.
the most immediate change that you can feel.
Right. Because you're gonna feel. You may. I mean, there might be differences in how you feel and like the effects of like presidential elections, but you're gonna immediately feel like local elections.
Absolutely. Tying into the distrust in just our national government, but also our state government, I know that I have my own personal feelings about our governor and just our representatives in general. I think a lot of people were also frustrated with why Mississippi didn't prepare for the recent ice storm, and so many people were left without power, without water, without anything to do. People ran to the grocery stores, bought everything they could, and so a lot of people were left without because people were hoarding stuff. How do y'all think that we should have better responded to that? Or do any of y'all's families affected by the ice, or what's going on?
I'm from central Mississippi, so we didn't get too much ice, but I do, when I'm not at school, work for my county supervisor's office. So when there are things that need to be cleaned up, stuff like that, we're the ones they call. And I remember before I came back for school, they were talking about, we need to get ready for this, but they were preparing for the aftermath. So we prepare for the aftermath for like cleaning up after, but nobody knows how to handle the before. We don't know how to salt roads, how to do all of this,
we don't have
stuff
the
like that.
infrastructure
Yeah.
set in place for ice storms like this because they're such an anomaly. And truthfully, they're directly caused by global warming and climate change. You know, we're just going to keep having stranger and stranger weather anomalies until the dinosaurs. More Mississippi news is the recent arson of the Beth Israel Synagogue. I was reading an article just the other day that discussed the parallels between not only the arson in 1967, that same synagogue was firebombed by the KKK, and just talking about how the political climate of 1967 mirrors what we're feeling today. There's this feeling of unrest and almost a war between people who want to keep people of color and generally minorities down, and people who are ready to implement change. What are y'all's feelings on the parallels between like the civil rights era and today, and just generally.
I mean, it's been an ongoing war that's been a thing since my parents, since my grandparents, since my great-grandparents. It's going to be a war we keep fighting. I don't know when it's going to reach a standstill or if there's ever going to be a resolution, but it's like we're going to see parallels for a long time. And it's just up to one generation to like decide when we're done with the parallels and we're ready to like start taking action.
And what do you think it takes to take action? What would you recommend?
So like it would take like decades of deconstructing racism for us to finally take action, because I feel like that's the first step.
And if we leave it vague in that way, what can we really do as an individual today? What do y'all think can be done to implement change in our local societies?
I mean, there's a lot that could be done. I wish I could give a specific thing, but there's a lot that could be done. Like, I think to start, people should like decenter their whiteness and remember that at the end of the day, like, you can be like white and queer and trans, but you're white first. Basically, decentering queerness and just remembering that you still have privilege no matter how like queer or trans you are.
Decentering queerness. I think that's really important, and it ties into Keith Porter, like we were talking about earlier. I think that people just feel more sympathetic for a white woman being killed, and especially when they're like, oh, she was queer, she was this, and some people, her ex-husband was, who I believe died also, was a veteran, and people found her to be a more sympathetic victim. But Keith Porter was a victim too, but they don't see him as such. They don't see him as sympathetic, and I think that that's really important to examine when we're talking about centering whiteness constantly.
Exactly. Like, I mean, people did so much digging into Renee Good's like personal life after she was killed, and like I barely know anything about Keith Porter aside from he had children, because of course I'm gonna hear about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just hate that Keith Porter is almost like his death is being used like a counterpoint to like, because it's like we should be fighting for them and not fighting because like he was a black man.
I agree.
You know?
I agree. He should be included in the group
Right.
rather than being like, well, but what about him?
Right.
But
Like
not
I
an
hate that he
afterthought.
has to be
Yeah,
a
exactly.
counterpoint.
Treating him like an
Mhm.
afterthought.
Exactly.
When he was a person with children. A
Much
family.
like Renee
yeah.
Good had children.
Exactly. Anything else? What else has been on y'all's minds?
I'm concerned about the ICE facilities that are being brought to Mississippi. There's one in Adams County,
I see.
and I'm really concerned about future ones. They're searching out buildings right now, and in a state like Mississippi, where a vast majority of our lower income population actually does work for detention centers and prisons, I am extremely concerned about people saying, well, this is going to help our economy, so it's okay, and that disconnect that's going to occur.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. There's just so much going on. I think a lot of people feel paralyzed by fear, and don't exactly know what to do or how to get out into their communities. And I think now more than ever is the time that we need to not only band together, but get out, volunteer, help the homeless people in your area, protest as much as you can. I hear people talking every day about protesting through joy or protesting through rest, and I hear a lot of counter arguments too about, I think that white people have rested enough, and I think that that's really true. I think
that's true as well.
I think that white people have felt a lot of joy and a lot of comfort for a long time. We haven't really had to feel uncomfortable, and I think now more than ever is the time to, like you were saying, decenter your whiteness and to get out of your comfort zone and to feel uncomfortable. Just the other day, Angela Davis, who is a fantastic speaker, came and spoke at Tougaloo College, giving advice for how to continue on fighting in such a climate. And I know that my friend Ira went, and it was really inspirational for her, and my friend Nadine as well. I wish that I would have gone. I wasn't paying attention to the dates. I totally should have gone. But I think that things like getting out and listening to her speak and getting out and trying and educating yourself, reading Angela Davis, reading bell hooks, reading women, specifically women of color, and their experiences and what they advise for doing every day to get out and help your community is incredibly important.
There's a statement from the
And we're going to have a quick break, and we'll be right back.
okay.
Hello again. During our break, our video producer Isabella was talking about Trump talking about the current housing crisis and saying that he could fix it if he wanted to, but he's choosing not to. How do y'all feel about our economy? Are we scared? I know that I am. I've been looking for housing. Prices are everywhere. Gas prices look pretty good, but food prices look horrible, and it's a pain. It's definitely anxiety-inducing. What are y'all feeling?
I graduate next year and hopefully start medical school next year. So I'm looking for housing in Jackson or wherever I end up going to med school, and it's like no one can afford anything. Like a 1-bedroom apartment can be like $800, $900, and that could easily be fixed, like you said, if we wanted to. And so it makes me feel like they don't care about the people and what we need to survive. They want us to work, they want us to have families, they want us to do this, to do that for the betterment of America, but they aren't making it as to where we can better ourselves to get to that position.
Absolutely. Keeping us down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfair. I know that a lot of the time I feel this enormous sense of injustice and just this unfair that people can hoard wealth, that is just allowed, that you are just allowed every day. If you become a billionaire, which you don't really become a billionaire without exploiting people, but you can exploit as many people as you want. You don't have to see people as people, because everyone sees someone else as below them. And I think that the only way to get over the injustices that we experience, not just financially, but as we've been talking about, just as civilians, is to stop looking at everyone around you as below you in some fashion. What are y'all thinking about that, V?
Absolutely. Like I said, it comes with like deconstructing racism, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be one person that thinks they're above someone, and typically it is because of race. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think if we do want to get any sort of resolution, we have to look past, or we have to acknowledge that like we all come from different racial backgrounds, but we're all trying to get the same thing here.
Dismantle white supremacy.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Dismantle the white supremacy and take care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me think. I'm trying to think of any other good news that I've heard this week, because everything we've talked about has been insanely depressing. But truthfully, all the headlines that I've seen coming out, there isn't anything that's quite of note. New season of Bridgerton. You know, I love my old lady show. I got my old lady show down.
New episode of The Pit yesterday.
I have never heard of The Pit. What is The Pit?
It's a medical drama, and it's about an ER in Pittsburgh, and it's like one of the most realistic medical dramas. It's really
interesting.
Good.
Okay, I've never really watched medical dramas except sometimes like scrolling on like YouTube shorts. Any good news for you? Any shows coming up that we should know about?
I don't know. I'm
You
not
don't know.
really.
I see.
I haven't watched TV. that
Well,
much.
if anyone in Hattiesburg is looking for a good show, go to hattiesburg.askapunk.net. I know that will also have the list for the UCW courses that I was talking about earlier, and the dates and locations. And I did see a couple of shows there at, it was called something like the Sledge Pit.
the
One of my friends is playing at the Switch Yard tomorrow
That's what I
night.
meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. The
Switch
Switch
Yard.
Yard
Yeah.
sledge
They're,
pit.
they're
I don't
playing
know.
tonight, actually, right?
I thought it was tomorrow night.
Well, it's one of
The
them. It's this
30th?
weekend.
It's one of them.
Get out.
It's on
and
the
mosh
30th, so whenever that is.
I think that's
Get-
today.
into
Oh.
your communities, mosh, volunteer, help your friends, move. You know, do whatever you can to really take care of the people around you. And those are my closing thoughts. Do y'all have any closing thoughts?
If you're looking for somewhere in Hattiesburg to volunteer, I volunteer a lot at Edward Street Fellowship Center. They are a religious organization, but they do not discriminate based on religion or sexuality or anything of that. And I love them so much. They're a great organization, and they help the people of Hattiesburg a lot.
Absolutely. V?
Go to local shows, show up for people in your community, because at the end of the day, we're all in it together.
Yep.
We're all just trying to survive.
Protest, mosh afterwards, and I think that's all we
Exactly.
got. This has been News You Need with Lily Burghard.